Evelyn Hart knew something was wrong before anyone spoke. The Luna's chair beside Silas was occupied. Camille Arden sat in it, as if she had always belonged there, one pale hand beside Silas's wineglass, silver silk catching the firelight. Around the winter table, conversation died. An elder stopped halfway through a sentence. One of the healers lowered her eyes. Even the servant carrying dinner hesitated when he saw Evelyn beneath the carved archway, 5.5 months pregnant, still wearing the deep red formal dress reserved for Red Hollow's Luna. Silas looked at her. He did not tell Camille to move. A servant dragged out another chair and carried it past the Alpha's end of the table. For 1 second, Evelyn thought he would place it beside Silas. He kept walking. The chair scraped against the stone floor at the far end. A visiting Alpha's wife, who had toasted Evelyn's pregnancy only a month earlier, looked down at her plate. No one challenged Silas. That hurt more than Camille's smile. The pack had watched her position disappear and accepted it in silence. Evelyn looked at her husband. "Why is Camille sitting in my chair?" Silas rose. "Evelyn, sit down. We can discuss this after the assembly. You announced something before I arrived." Camille turned in Evelyn's chair. "Silas only wanted to spare you unnecessary strain." Evelyn ignored her. "What did you announce?" Silas glanced toward the visiting Alpha families. "Beginning tomorrow, Camille will assume several of your public duties until after the birth." A faint movement passed through the table. They had already heard. Evelyn's hand settled over her stomach. Her son shifted beneath her palm. "You removed me as Luna without speaking to me. I reduced your workload. By putting your mistress in my seat?" The silence sharpened. Camille's mouth tightened. Silas's eyes flashed warning. "Not here." Evelyn almost laughed. He had made the decision here. Now he wanted privacy for the consequences. Camille lifted her wine. "Pregnancy is clearly becoming difficult for you. Some of us can still carry a full day." The healer 2 seats down looked sick. Silas said nothing. That was the moment something inside Evelyn stopped waiting for him to fix this. She did not take the chair at the end of the table. "Enjoy the assembly," she said. Then she walked out while 50 people watched their Luna leave without a place beside her own husband. By the time Evelyn reached the private wing, humiliation had cooled into something harder. She went to the nursery because she needed quiet. The door stood open. 2 servants were removing linens from the cabinet. A third carried Evelyn's medical supplies into the corridor. The green curtains she had chosen lay on the floor. Camille's ivory travel trunks stood beside the crib. Evelyn stopped. On the table near the window sat the unfinished baby blanket she had been sewing at night, one corner still pinned where the silver thread ended. "What are you doing?" The servants froze. Camille's voice came from behind her. "Preparing the room." Evelyn turned. Camille had followed her. "This is my child's nursery. For now." Camille stepped past her and touched the crib. "Once he is born, this room falls under my authority." A cold sensation moved through Evelyn's chest. "What did you say?" Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Silas entered. Evelyn looked at him. "Tell me she is lying." He shut the door behind him. "Camille has been designated nursery guardian." Evelyn's fingers went numb. "By whom?" "By me. You gave another woman authority over my son?" "Our son." The correction landed like a slap. Silas kept his voice measured. "Red Hollow needs continuity. After the birth, you will need time to recover. Camille's family has offered support, and the arrangement gives the pack stability." "Stability?" "Yes." Evelyn glanced toward the crib. "And the first blood ritual?" Silas was silent half a second too long. Her heartbeat changed. "What did you file?" "The declaration." Evelyn stared at him. "Without me? It requires maternal consent." "I did not consent." Silas's expression did not move. "The paperwork is complete." Something in Evelyn's training took over. Not wife, not Luna, healer. For weeks, she had watched their son's heart pattern fluctuate under stress. She had ordered extra blood work and warned Silas to delay any alpha rite until after birth. The binding could hurt him. He is an alpha heir. He is a baby. He is both. You do not know his body can survive it. Silas's face hardened. Neither do you. The room seemed to tilt. He knew there was uncertainty, and he had filed anyway. Camille folded her arms. "You are making this emotional." Evelyn looked at her once, then back at Silas. When does the declaration become active? Silas frowned. Why? When? Sunrise. The answer cleared her mind. She looked at the stripped cabinet, Camille's trunks, the crib that had become political territory before her child had taken his first breath, then at the unfinished blanket. Less than 7 hours. Silas reached for her arm. Evelyn. She stepped back before he touched her. For the first time that night, uncertainty crossed his face. If you are tired, he said, go to bed. We will talk in the morning. Evelyn looked at the man she had loved for 8 years. Morning was exactly what she could not allow. If I'm still here, then, she said quietly, there will be nothing left to discuss. She walked out. Behind her, Silas called her name once. Evelyn did not turn. She had less than 7 hours to make sure Red Hollow could not decide what happened to her son. Evelyn did not go to bed. She returned to the room she had shared with Silas for 8 years, locked the door, and stood with both hands braced against the dressing table until the shaking stopped. Then the baby moved beneath her ribs. All right, she whispered. We're leaving. She changed out of the formal Luna dress and into a plain wool traveling gown, then opened the cabinet where she kept her healer's case, prenatal records, her identification seal, 2 vials for cramping, a moonstone monitor, bandages, a folding herb knife. She added the small purse of coins she had owned before marrying Silas. Her hand paused over the jewelry box. She left it closed. Anything bought with Red Hollow money could become an accusation later. She would take nothing Silas could claim she had stolen. At the nursery door, she stopped again. No servants remained inside. Camille's trunk sat near the wall, neat and certain, as if Evelyn had already been removed from the room by more than a chair at dinner. The unfinished blanket lay where she had left it. She crossed to the crib and picked it up. Soft gray wool, silver thread, one unfinished corner. She had worked on it during council meetings and sleepless nights, during the weeks when Silas had still rested a hand over hers and asked whether their son was kicking. Evelyn folded it once. Then she set it back down. If Silas came looking and found the blanket gone, he would know she had left the palace. If it stayed, he might believe she had gone somewhere to calm down. Leaving it hurt more than leaving the jewels. She turned away. The healer's gate was on the eastern side of the compound, built for night calls and winter emergencies. Evelyn had used it hundreds of times. No one questioned the Luna when she carried a medical bag. Tonight, the young guard looked at her stomach. Do you need an escort, my lady? No. The roads are icing. I know. She gave him the calm look she used with frightened patience. He opened the gate. Cold air struck her face. Evelyn walked. She did not run. Running would waste strength she did not have. The forest beyond Red Hollow was silver with frost. Every step carried her farther from the palace, but the mate bond pulled beneath her breastbone with a dull ache, a physical memory of Silas. Her wolf stirred. Mate. Evelyn kept walking. She remembered him younger, before the title hardened him. Silas bringing soup to the healer house because she had forgotten to eat. Silas kneeling beside her when she told him she was pregnant. The memories were real. So was the chair at the end of the table. So was Camille's hand on the crib. So was sunrise. The first cramp came less than a mile from the outer road. Evelyn stopped beside a pine and breathed through it. Tightness, low and unpleasant, but not rhythmic. Not labor. Not tonight. She pressed the moonstone monitor beneath her stomach. Nothing. Her breath caught. Then a fast, steady pulse sounded against her palm. Evelyn closed her eyes. Good. She moved again. Behind her, Red Hollow's bells marked the next hour. 5 left. She avoided the main northern road and took an old healer's route toward the sovereign boundary. It added distance, but patrols rarely used it in winter. Halfway down the ridge, a howl rolled through the dark. Evelyn stopped. Another answered farther east. Patrol signals. Her pulse climbed. Silas might not know she had left yet, but Red Hollow had increased border patrols for the declaration. By sunrise, every crossing could be watched. Evelyn left the trail. The ground dropped toward a frozen creek. She climbed down carefully, one hand on branches, the other protecting her stomach. The ice looked solid. It was not. Her right foot broke through near the opposite bank. Evelyn fell hard onto one knee. Pain shot up her leg and across her abdomen. She dragged herself onto the bank, breathing too fast. The baby did not move. Her hands shook as she pressed the monitor down. 1 second. 2, 3. Silence. Then the pulse returned. Fast. Uneven for several beats, then steady. She bowed over the monitor. A howl sounded behind her. Closer. Evelyn forced herself upright. The eastern sky had begun to pale. Ahead, through the trees, stood 3 dark boundary stones carved with the crest of Northreach. She crossed the first, then the second. At the third, horses moved out of the mist. Her wet boot had gone numb, but she stayed standing. 6 riders. Northreach, black and silver. The man at their center sat taller than the others, dark hair uncovered despite the cold, his coat fastened with a plain silver clasp. Gray-green eyes settled on Evelyn, then on the red hollow crest pinned at her shoulder. No one needed to tell her who he was. Alpha King Cassian Thorne looked from her face to her pregnancy, then toward the howls closing behind her. Evelyn had crossed before sunrise. That should have mattered. Whether it mattered to a king was another question. Who are you running from? Evelyn tightened her grip on the medical case. My husband. For the first time since leaving the palace, she had no idea whether the man in front of her would send her back. Cassian Thorne did not dismount. For several seconds, the Alpha King watched Evelyn standing beneath the Northreach boundary stones with one soaked boot, mud darkening the knee of her wool dress, and a healer's case clutched against her chest. Behind her, red hollow wolves were still calling through the trees. Your name, he said. Evelyn Hart. Recognition flickered across one guard's face. Cassian's expression barely changed. Luna of Red Hollow. For the moment, his gaze shifted toward the forest. Why are you running from Alpha Silas Vane? Evelyn's wet foot had gone numb, and another low cramp pulled across her stomach. She could feel dawn approaching in the paling sky, each minute narrowing whatever chance she had left. I am requesting sovereign sanctuary. That tells me what you want, not why. My husband filed a first blood declaration for our unborn son. Something changed in Cassian's face. What kind? Binding at birth. His eyes dropped to her stomach. Did you consent? No. Does Silas know you object? I told him the ritual could harm the baby, and he filed anyway. Yes. Cassian dismounted. Up close, he looked less like the portrait sent between courts and more dangerous for the lack of ceremony. No crown, no fur mantle, only a dark winter coat and the stillness of a man accustomed to being obeyed. A gust cut through the trees. Evelyn shivered. Cassian unfastened his coat and held it toward her. I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. You're freezing. She hesitated, then took it. The coat was still warm from his body. Cedar, snow, and something darker clung to the fabric, distinct even beneath the aching pull of Silas's mate bond. The awareness irritated her almost as much as the cold. Cassian did not smirk or treat her acceptance like a victory. He simply turned his attention back to the border. He noticed her limp. You're injured. My boot went through the creek. I fell. The child? His heartbeat destabilized for several seconds. It recovered. His jaw tightened. Hoofbeats cut off whatever he might have said. 4 red hollow riders emerged between the pines and stopped short of the boundary stones. Captain Darius Holt dismounted first. My lady, he called. You need to come back. No. Darius looked at Cassian. Your Majesty, this is a domestic Red Hollow matter. Cassian's voice remained calm. You crossed half the forest before dawn for a domestic disagreement? Darius reached inside his coat. Alpha Vane has registered succession protections for his unborn heir. Lady Evelyn left under distress. I left because he filed them without my consent. We have consent. Evelyn stared at him. I signed nothing. Darius held up a sealed packet. Then challenge it through Red Hollow. Cassian's gaze sharpened. If she returns, what happens at sunrise? Darius did not answer. Evelyn did. The declaration becomes presumptively valid. And after birth, if it stands, Red Hollow can claim temporary custody of the child for the binding. Cassian looked at her. How long? 30 days. Darius added, for succession preparation. Cassian's face went still. And the ritual occurs during those 30 days? Yes. The baby moved beneath Evelyn's ribs. Cassian stepped beside the central boundary stone. Evelyn Hart has requested sovereign sanctuary. Northreach grants provisional protection effective now. Darius stiffened. You have no proof she is being unlawfully held. I am not ruling on her marriage. You are interfering with a registered heir. I am preventing enforcement until the consent is examined. The distinction landed hard. Even Darius stopped arguing for a beat. Cassian looked at Evelyn. I am freezing enforcement of the child claim for 72 hours. Relief hit so quickly her knees weakened. Then Cassian continued. Sanctuary protects you. Silas cannot force you back across this border while it stands. And my son? For 72 hours, the declaration is frozen too. And after that, if the consent survives review, Red Hollow still cannot take you. But after the birth, they can demand the child for the 30-day custody period and perform the binding. The relief vanished. Evelyn imagined giving birth only to have another pack arrive with a lawful order to carry her son away. 30 days was not temporary when a dangerous ritual could happen on the first. So sanctuary is not enough. No. His eyes held hers. It keeps Silas from taking you. It does not yet prove he cannot claim the child. For that, we need to destroy the consent. A cramp tightened low across Evelyn's abdomen. She pressed one hand beneath Cassian's coat. His attention dropped immediately. Sit. I'm fine. That answer is becoming less convincing. One of his guards folded a horse blanket over a fallen log. Evelyn lowered herself onto it. Darius crossed his arms. If Northreach intends to challenge the declaration, you should examine what she signed. I told you, Evelyn said. I did not sign it. Darius removed a document from the packet and gave it to a Northreach guard, who carried it across the boundary. Cassian broke the secondary seal. His eyes moved down the page, then stopped. He handed it to Evelyn. At the bottom of the first blood declaration, beneath the medical acknowledgement and maternal consent clause, was her name, Evelyn Hart. Below it was the familiar slant she had written thousands of times across healer reports, council approvals, and prenatal forms. Her signature. Her stomach turned. She touched the ink with one cold fingertip. The curve of the H. The shortened final stroke. Even the slight upward tilt she made when writing quickly. It was hers. Not similar. Not a crude imitation. Hers. Cassian watched her face. Lady Hart? Evelyn looked up. That is my signature. Darius exhaled as if the matter were settled. Evelyn tightened her grip on the page. But I never signed this. The Northreach healer house smelled of willow bark, clean linen, and wet wool. By sunrise, healer Rowan Hale had wrapped Evelyn's knee, replaced the soaked boot, and checked the baby twice. The heartbeat was steady. The cramping had eased. Cassian had not left. He stood near the window while a royal examiner studied the first blood declaration beneath a glass lens. Evelyn sat across the table with his coat still around her shoulders, though she had stopped noticing its warmth. The examiner pointed to the signature. The hand is hers. I know, Evelyn said. The question is whether she put it on this document. Cassian looked at her. What documents have you signed recently? Medical forms, supply approvals, 2 healer reports, nothing involving first blood. Prenatal records? Several. The examiner made a note. A cry came from the adjoining treatment room. Rowan moved first. Evelyn heard a woman gasp, then the sharp clatter of a tray. She was on her feet before anyone asked. Inside, a young pregnant wolf lay curled on a narrow bed, one hand gripping her throat. Red blotches had spread across her neck. What did you give her? Evelyn asked. Rowan reached for an antidote vial. Feverfew and Silverleaf for the migraine. Anything earlier? The junior healer froze. Bitterroot tonic. 2 hours ago. Evelyn caught Rowan's wrist before he injected the antidote. Not that. Silverleaf slows bitterroot clearance. That antidote will drop her pressure further. Rowan looked at the patient, then back at Evelyn. You're sure? I treated the same interaction in Red Hollow last winter. Charcoal wash first. Then half-dose moon mint. He changed course immediately. Within minutes, the woman's breathing eased. Evelyn stepped back only when the blotches began fading. Cassian was standing in the doorway. You should be sitting, he said. She should be breathing. Something almost like amusement touched his eyes. Both can be true. Evelyn returned to the examination room before he could see that the answer affected her. The forensic review resumed. By noon, the examiner had narrowed the problem. The signature was transferred, he said. Evelyn leaned forward. He placed 2 sheets side by side. The pressure pattern is inconsistent with the surrounding ink. The signature appears to have been lifted from another document, likely through a copying plate or spell-treated transfer paper. Cassian's jaw tightened. Can you identify the source? Not from this page alone. We need originals bearing the same stroke pattern. Evelyn thought through every form she had signed during pregnancy. Maternal blood panels, she said. The first series. Where are they stored? The Red Hollow Maternal Archive. Cassian turned toward the examiner. Request certified originals. Evelyn looked at him. No. The room went still. Cassian's gaze returned to her. No? If Red Hollow sees exactly what you request, they will know what we are trying to prove. We need authenticated records. Then request the entire prenatal file. That creates its own problems. It creates fewer than handing Silas a map of our evidence. Cassian folded his arms. If I exclude Red Hollow from the review entirely, Silas will challenge every finding as politically manufactured. He is already using a document I never signed, and that is exactly why the process has to survive scrutiny. Evelyn stood. Cassian was close enough that she had to tilt her chin slightly to hold his gaze. Do you always stand this close when you think you're right? His eyes dropped for the briefest second to the space between them. Then he stepped back half a pace. Only when the other person refuses to stop making a good argument. The answer irritated her because it almost made her smile. Almost. She pointed to the forged declaration. You let them see what we're looking for. They will know what to remove. Cassian's expression changed. Not anger. Decision. If I hide the review, the ruling becomes useless outside Northreach. And if you open it, then we control the chain. You think you control it. That landed. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Cassian turned to his secretary. Authorize a neutral examiner. Administrative access only. No physical evidence leaves Northreach. Evelyn stared at him. You're doing it anyway. Yes. The warmth she had felt when he handed her his coat disappeared. Cassian looked back at her. I heard your warning. You just didn't believe it. I believe the risk. I disagree with the answer. That distinction might have sounded reasonable from anyone else. From a king, it sounded dangerous. Near mid-afternoon, the examiner found a match in archive samples. Uppernatal blood test constant. Same shortened final stroke. Same upward tilt. Same pressure break in the middle of the H. Evelyn knew the form. I signed that at 20 weeks. Who witnessed it? Cassian asked. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. Mara Fenwick. Cassian waited. My midwife. She kept the maternal ledgers before she retired from palace service. Would she still have the original? If anyone does. Cassian ordered a protected request sent for Mara through the neutral administrative channel he had authorized. Evelyn said nothing. An hour later, a Northreach messenger entered without knocking. His face told her before his words did. Your Majesty, we received a response from Red Hollow's Eastern District. Cassian rose. The messenger swallowed. Mara Fenwick's cottage was searched less than an hour after our request entered the shared registry. Neighbors saw Red Hollow riders leave minutes ago. Evelyn's hands went cold. Where is she? No one knows. Silence settled over the room. Cassian looked at the request log lying open on the examiner's desk. Then at Evelyn. She did not need to say, I warned you. His face showed he had already heard it. Somewhere between Northreach and Red Hollow, the one woman who might prove how Evelyn's signature had been stolen had disappeared, and Cassian's decision had told Silas exactly where to look. Cassian closed the shared review channel before the messenger finished his report. No more external access, he told his secretary. Every request stays inside Northreach until I approve it personally. The secretary bowed and left. Evelyn remained beside the examination table, staring at the empty space where Mara's name had been written on the request log. Cassian turned toward her. The leak began with access I authorized. Yes, I should have listened. Yes. He took the answer without flinching. Evelyn folded the forged declaration once and set it down. You needed the process to look fair. I needed the ruling to survive outside this room, and now Mara may be paying for that. His jaw tightened. I know. No. You know the sentence. You do not know where she is. Cassian said nothing. That silence made it harder to stay angry in the clean, simple way Evelyn wanted. He was not defending himself. He was not blaming the examiner, the registry, or Red Hollow. He was simply standing inside the consequence of his own decision. She hated that she respected him for it. Before leaving the healer house, Evelyn paused at the window. Mara had delivered her through 2 winters of false labor scares among the pack women and had taught Evelyn how to listen for fear before a patient admitted it. She was 63, stubborn, and terrible at keeping secrets that involved bad medicine. If Red Hollow had frightened her into hiding, then the danger was no longer theoretical. Evelyn looked back at Cassian. You wanted legitimacy. I did. Was it worth this? No. The speed of his answer left her with nothing to strike at. I need air, she said. Rowan objected from the doorway. You need rest. I am walking to the courtyard, not crossing another frozen river. Cassian reached for his coat from the back of her chair, then stopped himself before offering it. Evelyn noticed. That irritated her too. She took her own cloak and left. Northreach's inner courtyard opened onto an old training yard surrounded by black pines. Snow had been cleared from the stone rings, though no one was practicing. Evelyn walked slowly until she saw Cassian again nearly an hour later. He stood alone beside a weathered wooden post, scarred by old claw marks. You followed me, she said. No. She looked around the empty yard. Cassian glanced at the post. I come here when I need to remember why I built certain rules. Evelyn almost kept walking. Then she noticed a small silver plaque at the base. Theodore Thorne, 12 years. She stopped. Your brother? Cassian nodded. The wind moved between them. My father believed an alpha heir should awaken early, he said. Theo's healers warned him to wait. My father called caution weakness. Evelyn looked at the claw marks. What happened? The right triggered a partial shift his body could not sustain. Cassian's voice remained controlled, which somehow made the words worse. He bled internally before anyone admitted the ritual had gone wrong. Evelyn's anger did not disappear. It changed shape. You were there. I was 16. For a moment, she saw something beneath the king. Not softness exactly, but the outline of a boy who had watched authority call itself certainty while his brother died. You were a child too, she said. Cassian looked away. Evelyn let the silence sit before continuing. So you built a reign around procedure because your father trusted his own judgment too much. Yes. And yesterday I stood in front of you and told you the process itself was dangerous. His eyes returned to hers. Yes. And you trusted it anyway. A muscle moved in his cheek. Yes. There was no excuse after that. The honesty hurt less than justification would have. They walked back toward the healer house without speaking. By late afternoon, a sealed packet had arrived from a Northreach-affiliated clinic that once exchanged prenatal records with Red Hollow. Rowan opened it in front of both of them. Inside was a certified copy of a blood analysis dated 11 days earlier. Evelyn recognized her own patient number. Her pulse quickened. Rowan read silently, then placed the page flat on the table. Here. A paragraph had been underlined by the original physician. First blood binding carried elevated risk of maternal hemorrhage, fetal cardiac distress, and postnatal shifting instability. Evelyn read it twice. So the warning existed. Yes, Rowan said. Cassian leaned over the page. Does this prove Silas received it? Rowan shook his head. No distribution record, no acknowledgement. Evelyn closed her eyes. One more step forward. Still not enough. We can prove the danger, Cassian said. Not what he knew. No. The answer sat heavily between them. When Evelyn left the archive room, dusk had settled over the courtyard. The temperature had dropped sharply. Cassian was waiting beneath the covered walk. He held out a pair of lined gloves. Evelyn looked at them. Are those royal? They're gloves. Despite herself, a small laugh escaped her. Cassian's expression shifted, almost surprised. She took them. Do not mistake that for forgiveness. I wouldn't dare. The gloves were warm. Too large, but warm. They walked several steps together. Evelyn was beginning to understand why Cassian unsettled her. It was not because he was a king. Silas had taught her that power alone could become very ordinary. It was because Cassian could be wrong without becoming cruel when confronted with it. That did not make him safe. Not yet. A junior healer hurried across the courtyard. Lady Hart? Evelyn stopped. The girl handed her a folded strip of paper. This was left at the eastern service gate. The messenger refused to give a name. Cassian turned toward them. Evelyn unfolded it. The handwriting was uneven but unmistakable. Mara. I have the original. Silas saw it. Do not trust the official road. For 1 second, relief nearly knocked the breath from her. Mara was alive. Cassian stepped closer. What is it? Evelyn looked at the note. Then at the man whose decision had already exposed Mara once. Her fingers closed around the paper. Nothing. Cassian studied her face. Evelyn slipped Mara's message into her sleeve. For the first time since crossing into Northreach, she chose to keep evidence from the Alpha King. Evelyn waited until the healer house had gone quiet. Mara's note remained inside her sleeve, folded tight at the creases. Rowan had ordered her to rest. Cassian had returned to the palace for an emergency council session. 2 guards stood outside the main entrance. None of that changed the sentence she could not ignore. I have the original. She told herself she was not running from Cassian. She was protecting a woman his process had already exposed. That distinction felt convincing until she reached the Eastern Service Gate. Mara had included no location, only an old healer's mark beneath her name. Evelyn knew it. A disused birthing shelter stood less than a mile beyond the outer orchard. She took only her medical case and Cassian's gloves. Cold mist clung to the ground as she followed the narrow path between bare apple trees. Her knee still ached, but less than the day before. The baby had been quiet since supper. Too quiet. She pressed a hand to her stomach. A small movement answered, "Good." The shelter appeared between 2 pines. Mara opened the door before Evelyn knocked. For 1 second, neither woman moved. Then Evelyn stepped inside and held her. Mara was shaking. You should not have come. You told me not to trust the official road. I meant send someone you trusted. I did. Mara pulled back. You. Then Evelyn saw the leather ledger on the table, one corner dark with soot. You kept it. I kept copies of every high-risk maternal case after I retired. Your blood panels were unusual. Evelyn crossed to the table. Did Silas see the warning? Yes. Mara opened the ledger to a marked page. His office requested the report 11 days ago. I delivered it myself. Beside the risk summary were 2 initials. S.V. Did he sign this? He initialed it after reading. Relief hit so hard Evelyn had to grip the table. Then a horse snorted outside. Both women froze. Another sound followed. Leather. A low voice. Mara whispered, "They followed me." The explanation was brutally simple. Red Hollow had been watching Mara since Cassian's request exposed her. "Back door?" Evelyn asked. Mara pointed. They moved. The first shout came before Evelyn reached the tree line. Lady Hart. She ran anyway. Pain struck low across her abdomen almost immediately. Not a cramp. A contraction. Evelyn stopped. Breath gone. Mara caught her arm. You cannot run. I cannot stay. They cut downhill through the trees. Behind them, branches snapped. Evelyn forced herself forward until another contraction folded her against a pine. Her medical case fell from her hand. Mara crouched beside her. Evelyn! I'm fine. No, you are not. A rider appeared between the trees. Then another. A shout cracked through the woods from the opposite ridge. Northreach. Cassian had returned to the healer house minutes after Evelyn left. Rowan had gone to check her pulse, found the bed empty, and called the eastern gate. The guard there remembered a hooded woman carrying a medical case toward the orchard. Cassian knew enough of the old property maps to guess where a retired midwife might choose to meet unseen. He had followed the same trail Red Hollow had. That fact would matter later. For now, all Evelyn saw was the man she had refused to trust arriving before the trackers could reach her. Cassian came through the trees with 6 guards. He looked at Mara, then at Evelyn bent against the pine. His anger vanished. Get Rowan. One guard turned his horse immediately. Cassian came toward her. Evelyn raised a hand. Do not. I'm not touching you. He stopped. Another contraction hit. Tell me what you need. The monitor. He found it beside the open medical case and placed it in her hand. Evelyn pressed the stone beneath her belly. Nothing. 1 second. Full. 3. Come on. Then a heartbeat fluttered through the stone. Too fast. Uneven. Evelyn's knees gave way. Cassian caught her only after she reached for him. The ride back blurred into cold pain, and Rowan ordering everyone out of the treatment room. For nearly 10 minutes, the baby's heartbeat refused to settle. Evelyn lay rigid while Rowan worked. Finally, the rhythm slowed. Steady. Alive. Evelyn covered her face with both hands. Outside the door, Cassian asked Rowan's assistant one question. Has she authorized anyone to enter? No, Your Majesty. Then no one enters. He stayed outside. Hours later, Mara was safe in another room and the contractions had stopped. Cassian was still waiting. A council messenger stood with him. Evelyn could hear them through the half-open door. The Southern Alphas will withdraw from the Winter Grain Compact if Sanctuary remains in force. Cassian said nothing. They want Northreach out of Red Hollow's succession dispute. And if I refuse, we lose preferential grain rates, possibly 2 regional votes. The messenger's face tightened. The compact was not ceremonial. It kept winter grain affordable in the northern settlements and tied 2 smaller packs to Cassian's voting bloc. Losing it would cost Northreach money immediately and influence for months. A pause. Refuse. Your Majesty, the decision that exposed Mara was mine. I will not repair it by handing Evelyn back to the man threatening her child. The messenger left. Cassian did not come in. Evelyn stared at the door. She had been angry because he had chosen legitimacy and she had paid the risk. Now he had chosen differently. This time, he was paying. Cassian. The door opened. He stepped inside but stayed near it. Evelyn looked at him. I knew meeting Mara was dangerous. Yes, I went anyway. Yes, you were right about that. He shook his head. And I gave you a reason not to trust me with it. No competition over blame. No demand that one mistake erase the other. Evelyn held out her hand. Cassian looked at it before crossing the room. His fingers closed around hers. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But trust. Chosen again. Mara entered later, carrying the ledger. Part of one page had been soaked during the escape. Another edge had burned when a tracker's lantern struck the shelter table. The risk notice remained readable. So did 2 initials beside it. Siva. Evelyn touched them. Is that enough? Cassian studied the page. To prove Silas saw something, and to prove he understood the risk? No. Evelyn closed the ledger. They had survived the night. The case had not. Silas arrived at Northreach under a white flag and with no army. That, more than anything, told Evelyn he understood how dangerous the situation had become. The formal hearing was held in a stone chamber beside the Royal Council Hall. Cassian sat at one end of the long table, not on a throne. Evelyn sat opposite Silas. 17 hours remained before the sanctuary hold expired. For several seconds, her husband only looked at her. His face was thinner than she remembered from the night she left. His beard had grown in unevenly. He looked less like the Alpha who had replaced her before Red Hollow, and more like the man who used to fall asleep over treaty reports beside her. That almost made it worse. Come home, Silas said. Evelyn rested one hand over the place where their son moved beneath her ribs. Will you cancel the binding? Silas's expression tightened. He did not answer. Then you have your answer. This is not about what I want. No. It is about what you decided everyone else must want. Silas leaned forward. Red Hollow is losing support along the western line. 2 allied packs have already questioned whether our son will be strong enough to hold succession. Camille's family gives us stability. The first blood right gives them certainty. It gives them a newborn child to measure. It gives the pack an heir. He may die. He may not. The words landed exactly where they had before. Only now Evelyn knew Silas had received the warning. Cassian stayed silent. Silas turned toward him. You think this is cruelty because Northreach can afford principles. Red Hollow cannot. An Alpha cannot build a pack around one person's fear. Evelyn answered before Cassian could. Then you should never have built a family. Silas went still. You think I stopped loving you? Evelyn hated that the question still had somewhere to land. I think you decided loving me gave you the right to overrule me. The hearing ended without agreement. Outside, cold sunlight cut across the courtyard. Evelyn stood beneath the covered walkway until her breathing settled. Cassian joined her, leaving a respectful distance between them. If Silas weren't my husband, she said, would you still have done all this? Yes. Evelyn looked at him. Cassian held her gaze. But I would be lying if I said that was all this is to me now. Her pulse shifted. He did not step closer. You owe me nothing for what I've done. Not gratitude. Not an answer. Before Evelyn could respond, a guard approached with a sealed statement from Red Hollow. The name at the bottom was Camille Arden. Camille did not apologize. She stated that 2 nights earlier she had found a draft alliance compact naming another noble woman as Silas's future Luna once the heir had been successfully bound. Only then had Camille understood that the authority she had accepted over Evelyn's child had never made her secure. Silas had intended to use her position and replace her afterward. Evelyn felt no sympathy. Camille had still taken the chair. She had still accepted the nursery. She had still agreed to authority over a child whose mother had never consented. But the next paragraph mattered. Camille swore that before Evelyn fled, she had asked Silas whether the medical warning would delay the first blood rite. Silas had answered that the danger was acceptable if the child survived strong enough to bind. Cassian read the line once. "It helps. It corroborates what he said, and when he said it," Evelyn replied, "it does not prove what he read." No, Camille had done one right thing. Nothing more. That night, Evelyn found Cassian on the west balcony outside the archive room. "We may actually have a case," she said. "We do. You sound surprised." "I am trying not to sound relieved." She smiled despite herself. Cassian turned toward her. The space between them felt different now. Not accidental, not political. Evelyn stepped closer. He did too. For one suspended second, she thought he would kiss her. She wanted him to. Cassian stopped first. "Not tonight." Her brows lifted. "Why?" "Because you are relieved, scared, and still fighting a husband who is trying to take your child." Evelyn exhaled. "You are profoundly inconvenient." "So I've heard." The archive door opened behind them. Mara stood there with the damaged ledger under one arm. "I remembered something." She opened it to the risk notice. When Silas initialed this, he did not return it to the maternal archive. He ordered it moved into private Alpha review. Cassian's expression sharpened. "And every document routed there requires a written transfer order," Mara continued. "The original prenatal consent your signature came from should still be in the maternal archive too." Evelyn understood. The original consent could establish exactly what she had authorized. The routing order could place the warning in Silas's hands before the first blood declaration was filed. "Where are both records?" Cassian asked. "In the Red Hollow Assembly archive." Cassian said, "We can petition for production." "Not from here," Evelyn replied. "Silas can delay until the hold expires." 17 hours had become less than 12. Cassian studied her face. "You are not crossing that border alone." "I didn't say I was." Evelyn looked south, toward the place she had fled with nothing but a medical case and enough fear to keep moving. Now she knew exactly why she had to return. "Then I go back." Evelyn returned to Red Hollow through the same iron gates she had left before sunrise 3 days earlier. Less than 6 hours remained before the 72-hour hold expired. The winter assembly hall was already full. Elders occupied the lower benches. Pack officers stood along the walls. Visiting Alpha families filled the gallery. At the far end, Silas sat beneath the carved wolf crest. The Luna's chair remained beside him. Empty. Evelyn saw it immediately. So did everyone else. For one heartbeat, she remembered Camille sitting there in silver silk, the servant carrying another chair past Silas, the scrape of wood against stone at the far end of the table. Evelyn did not look for a seat. She walked to the center of the hall and stopped. Cassian entered with the Northreach delegation several steps behind her. Under the Interpact Consent Covenant, the sovereign who granted sanctuary sat as one of the voting arbiters in the challenge, unless he recused himself. Silas knew it too. "You brought a king into my domestic dispute." Evelyn set her evidence case on the central table. "You put my signature on a document I never signed. It stopped being domestic when you filed it as law." A murmur moved through the benches. Silas's counsel rose. "Before any evidence is heard, Red Hollow challenges the integrity of the Northreach Review." Cassian's expression did not change. Alpha King Thorne granted sanctuary to another Alpha's mate, opened a cross-border investigation, and authorized the process that exposed Mara Fenwick. Any conclusion reached under his authority is contaminated. Several elders exchanged looks. Cassian stepped forward. "The decision that exposed Mara Fenwick was mine. Lady Hart warned me that the review channel could identify her evidence sources. She was correct. I was not." He faced Chief Elder Garrick Vale. "For that reason, I recuse myself from all voting authority in this matter." The reaction was immediate. One of the voting seats had just gone empty, and Evelyn had lost the only arbiter who had already placed political capital behind protecting her. Silas's counsel almost smiled. Evelyn looked at Cassian. He did not look back. He had surrendered the power to help decide the outcome. Now her case had to survive without him. Chief Elder Vale struck the floor once with his staff. Proceed. Evelyn did not remove the prenatal consent from her case. Instead, she turned to the assembly clerk. Produce Maternal Archive File 20W and the original First Blood Declaration. Silas's counsel rose. The Maternal Archive is restricted. Not during a live consent challenge, Vale said. Produce them. The clerk returned with both originals. Evelyn placed the prenatal blood test consent beside the declaration. This is what I signed at 20 weeks. It authorized fetal blood analysis. Nothing else. The forensic examiner compared the two originals before the hall. The signatures matched exactly, but the declaration showed the transfer pattern already identified in Northreach. The signature had been lifted from the prenatal form and reproduced onto a document Evelyn had never signed. Silas's counsel stood. That proves duplication. It does not prove Alpha Vane ordered it. I haven't said it does, Evelyn replied. She placed the medical warning next. The physician's language was read aloud. Elevated risk of hemorrhage, fetal cardiac distress, postnatal shifting instability. Then came Mara's damaged maternal ledger. The edge was blackened. Water had blurred part of the margin. The initials beside the warning remained visible. S.V. Mara testified that Silas had received the warning through her office. Initials prove receipt, not comprehension, Silas's counsel said. Evelyn nodded. Agreed. Next came Camille's sworn statement. Evelyn used it only to corroborate timing. Before she fled, Silas had already spoken about the medical risk as acceptable if the child survived strong enough to bind. The witness has personal grievance, counsel said. She does, Evelyn replied. Her statement is not my proof of intent. Silas watched her more carefully now. Finally, Evelyn turned to the clerk again. The private Alpha Review routing register. This time, Silas's counsel stood so quickly his chair struck stone. That archive is privileged. Chief Elder Vale looked at the clock above the hall doors, then at Silas. Not when fewer than 6 hours remain in an active maternal consent challenge. The clerk disappeared through a side door. No one spoke while they waited. Cassian remained with the Northreach delegation, silent. When the clerk returned, he carried a narrow leather register and one folded routing order. Evelyn opened it. 11 days earlier, Silas Vane had personally directed the maternal risk notice from the healer's office into private Alpha Review. Before the first blood declaration was filed, low voices broke across the hall. Evelyn placed the order beside Mara's ledger. The chain was finally visible. The original consent showed what she had actually signed. Forensics showed how that signature reached the declaration. The warning established the medical danger. Mara's ledger showed Silas received it. Camille's statement supported the timeline. The routing order proved he personally called the warning into his private review before filing the declaration. Silas's counsel recovered first. Receiving a document is not the same as understanding it, nor have you proven Alpha Vane knowingly permitted the use of a signature he knew was unauthorized. The weakness was real. Evelyn had built the chain. Intent still sat behind Silas's silence. Chief Elder Vale looked at her. Lady Hart, can you establish that Alpha Vane understood the risk and knowingly filed maternal consent he did not have? Silas leaned back slightly. For the first time that day, confidence returned to his face. His counsel whispered to him. Silas shook his head and stood. I will answer under witness oath. A ripple moved through the hall. Evelyn knew why. Silas believed he could call the danger acceptable judgment, the signature an administrative act, and the decision the burden of an alpha protecting succession. Chief Elder Vale raised his staff. Lady Hart, are you prepared to establish intent? Evelyn met Silas's eyes. Yes. Silas's mouth hardened. Then ask. For several seconds, no one in the winter assembly hall moved. Silas stood across from Evelyn. The evidence lay between them. The prenatal consent, the copied signature, the medical warning, Mara's ledger, Camille's statement, the routing order. Evelyn did not touch any of it. She looked at her husband. Did you receive Dr. Fenwick's medical warning? Silas glanced toward his counsel. Answer the question, Chief Elder Vale said. Yes. Did you personally request that warning be moved into private Alpha Review? Yes. Did you read it? A pause. Yes. Evelyn's voice remained level. Did it state that first blood binding could cause maternal hemorrhage? Yes. Fetal cardiac distress? Yes. Postnatal shifting instability? Yes. Death? Silas's jaw tightened. In rare cases. Evelyn did not look away. Was death listed as a possible outcome? The silence stretched just long enough for everyone in the hall to feel it. Yes. Evelyn placed one fingertip on the medical warning. You read this before the first blood declaration was filed. Yes. You understood the ritual could harm our son. I understood there was risk. That was not my question. His eyes sharpened. Evelyn repeated it. Did you understand the ritual could harm our son? Yes. Could kill him? Silas inhaled slowly. Yes. Evelyn moved to the next document. The prenatal blood test consent. Did you ever place the first blood declaration in front of me? No. Did you ever ask me to sign it? No. Did I ever tell you I accepted the medical risk described in this warning? Silas's counsel stood. Alpha Vane has already explained that succession obligations. Chief Elder Vale struck his staff once. Sit down. The council obeyed. Evelyn kept her eyes on Silas. Did I consent? He looked at her as though he could still make her understand the larger thing he believed she was refusing to see. You knew our son would be an heir. Evelyn's expression did not change. Did I consent? You knew Red Hollow would require. Did I consent? The hall had become completely silent. Silas looked at the empty Luna chair beside him, then back at Evelyn. No. No one moved. Evelyn slid the prenatal form beside the first blood declaration. Is this my signature? Yes. Did I write it on the declaration? No. Did you know I had not signed the declaration when it was filed? Silas's face hardened. I knew the paperwork had been completed. That was not my question. Anger flashed in his eyes. Evelyn did not raise her voice. Did you know I had not signed it? A long pause. Yes. Cassian stood among the Northreach delegation without moving. Evelyn asked the next question. You knew the binding could injure or kill our son? Yes. You knew I had not agreed to that risk? Yes. And after knowing both, did you allow a first blood declaration carrying my transferred signature to be filed under your authority? Silas stared at her. The hall waited. His counsel whispered, Do not answer beyond the scope. Silas lifted one hand. He looked exhausted suddenly. Not defeated, just stripped of every explanation except the one he had always believed should be enough. I acted for Red Hollow. Evelyn held his gaze. Did you file it? Silas's throat moved. Yes. The word fell into the hall with nowhere left to hide. Evelyn stepped back. She had no closing speech. She did not need one. Chief Elder Vale called the assembly into deliberation. The wait lasted less than 20 minutes. When the elders returned, no one sat. Vale remained standing. The maternal consent attached to the first blood declaration is invalid. The assembly finds that the signature was transferred from an unrelated medical authorization and filed with knowledge that Lady Hart had not consented to the ritual risk. Silas did not react. Vale continued, The first blood declaration is void. Evelyn's breath left her slowly. Red Hollow therefore has no post-birth 30-day custody right, no authority to perform first blood binding without the mother's future consent, and no automatic lineage claim over the child. No custody, no binding, no claim. Her hand moved over her stomach. For the first time since the night Camille sat in her chair, there was no clock running against her child. Chief Elder Vale looked toward Silas. Questions concerning Alpha Vane's conduct, including the fraudulent filing of maternal consent, are referred for confidence review. That was all. No guards rushed forward. No dramatic punishment arrived. Silas remained where he was, and that felt right. The consequence that mattered had already happened. He no longer controlled what happened to their son. The assembly began to break into low conversation. Silas walked toward Evelyn before anyone could intercept him. Cassian shifted once across the hall, then stopped himself. This was not his moment to enter. Silas halted a few feet away. What happens now? Evelyn looked at him. You return to Red Hollow. And you? I decide for myself. Pain crossed his face. Evelyn. She waited. Is there anything left for us? 8 years stood inside the question. The man who had once brought her soup at midnight, the husband who had rested his hand over her stomach when they first heard their son's heartbeat, The Alpha who had watched another woman take her place and then signed away her consent because he believed duty gave him the right. Evelyn did not hate him. "There is a child," she said. "There is history." Silas's eyes held hers. "There is no marriage." He closed his eyes once. When he opened them, Evelyn had already turned away. An elder approached the head table and reached for the empty Luna chair. "Lady Hart," he said quietly. "Your seat." Evelyn stopped him. "I didn't come back for the chair." She left it empty. Outside the hall, evening had fallen over Red Hollow. Cassian stood beneath the stone archway alone. No throne, no council, no vote left to cast in her favor. For the first time since Evelyn had crossed his border, there was no deadline threatening her son and no decision Cassian could make for her. He looked at her but did not ask whether she was coming back to Northreach. He did not ask anything. Evelyn stopped in front of him. Behind her, the hall doors closed. For the first time in days, the sound did not feel like a trap. Evelyn returned to Northreach because she chose to. The next morning, Red Hollow sent formal notice that Silas had entered confidence review. His first blood claim was void, and no future pact petition could remove Evelyn's son from her custody without her consent. Camille requested 10 private minutes 2 days later. "My statement helped," she said. It did. Camille waited for more. Evelyn gave her the truth instead. "One right choice does not erase the others." Camille's face tightened. "I know. That was the end of it. The consequences in Northreach were less private. The Southern Alphas withdrew from the Winter Grain Compact. Prices rose. Cassian opened reserve stores, cut the royal winter budget, and faced a council furious that his decision had cost them both money and influence. He never used Evelyn's victory as a defense. "The decision was mine," he told them. That night, Evelyn found him on the west balcony where they had almost kissed. Snow drifted beyond the arches. "The sanctuary order expires at midnight," Cassian said. "I know. You can leave Northreach tomorrow." Evelyn leaned against the railing. "Do you want me to?" "No." The answer came at once. "But wanting you here does not make staying your obligation." She studied him. Silas had loved her, and still believed love entitled him to choose for her. Cassian wanted her, and was leaving the choice where it belonged. "You make this difficult," she said. "Leaving? No. Doing this properly." Evelyn stepped closer and kissed him. Cassian went still for half a heartbeat before his hand settled at her waist. Even then, he waited until she closed the distance again. She did. The kiss promised nothing beyond what they were willing to choose next. For Evelyn, that was precisely why it mattered. 3 months later, she woke before dawn with a contraction strong enough to bend her over the bed. By sunrise, Northreach Maternal House was awake around her. Rowan checked the baby. Mara argued with 2 younger healers. Cassian waited in the corridor because Evelyn had not asked him inside. 8 hours into labor, she heard his footsteps stop outside the door. "Is he still there?" she asked Mara. "Hasn't left." Another contraction took the rest of her attention. Much later, exhausted past pride, Evelyn caught Mara's arm. "Bring him in." Cassian entered without his coat, guards, or any mark of office. He came to the bedside and offered his hand. Evelyn took it. Noah arrived 23 minutes later, furious at the world. His first cry filled the room. Evelyn laughed and cried at once, as Rowan laid him against her chest. Dark hair, red face, tiny fists clenched beneath his chin. "Hello, Noah." Cassian stood beside the bed looking more frightened than Evelyn had ever seen him. The registry clerk came that afternoon. Mother, Evelyn Hart. Father, Silas Vane. Child, Noah Hart. Evelyn read the surname twice before signing. Noah would not carry Vane because a pact demanded it, and he would not carry Thorne because a king loved his mother. His name did not have to prove anyone's bloodline. Cassian approached the cradle after sunset. Noah was awake, staring upward with the solemn suspicion of a newborn. Cassian looked at Evelyn first. "May I?" Once, men had filed declarations over this child before he had taken a breath. Now, the most powerful Alpha in the north stood beside his cradle and asked permission to lift him. Evelyn smiled. Yes. A week later, a plain wooden crate arrived from Red Hollow with the belongings she had left behind. Gray wool lay beneath a stack of dresses. The unfinished blanket. Evelyn carried it to Noah's room. There was no Luna crest above the door or ceremonial cradle waiting for an heir. Afternoon light crossed a small bed, a healer's lamp, and shelves already filling with ordinary things. She sat beside the window and threaded a needle with silver yarn. Cassian paused at the doorway. The final corner took only a few minutes. One stitch followed another until Evelyn tied the last knot. She wrapped the blanket around Noah and lifted him against her chest. Cassian remained where she had found him. "Do you want me to stay?" he asked. Evelyn looked at her son, the blanket she had once believed she had to abandon, and the man who had learned that love did not grant authority. Yes. Cassian came inside. The first nursery had been taken from Evelyn before her son was born. This room asked nothing of Noah except that he grow inside it. Evelyn had fought for the right to choose his future. Cassian was part of hers because she had chosen him too.